Did you know there is a new silent killer for women over 50? It's not cancer and it's not heart disease, but it is as much an effect to physical and mental health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. The United States Surgeon General has declared it an epidemic. And it's called loneliness. There's a big difference between being alone and being lonely. Being alone is a state of being. Loneliness is a feeling of disconnection. A disconnect with yourself, with God, with your friends, your spouse, community. Disconnection. And it is epidemic. So why is this such a threat to women? Well, as women, we hit our 50s and it becomes a big transitional period of our life. The first one being our kids leave home. And there becomes this disconnect with our identity as a mother. What do we do now? We were busy running kids, doing this, taken care of, and all of a sudden they're away at college. I certainly felt this when my youngest son left the home to go to college. I was single, and for the first time in my life, I lived alone. And I was early 50s. I was still really active. I was going to school, working full time. And I stayed busy all day. But when I got home at night, or the TV was turned off, there was this deafening silence in my house. And it was so uncomfortable. And yes, I felt lonely. And I navigated this time and I struggled and I began to seek. And I tapped into my spiritual side and I started going to God to meet my emotional needs. And I learned how to connect with God and then connect with myself. And this helped me with my lonely feelings. There's other transitions we go through. Menopause. And what a transition that is. And it affects our hormones. And we don't have the same hormones to deal sometimes with emotions. And there's also the shift of a lot of women end up divorced at this age. They call it the gray divorce. Statistics. Let me give you some statistics on this. Increase in divorce by 34.9% after the age of 55. And a recent study or research by Bowling Green University, divorce rate doubled for those over 50 and tripled for those over 65. These are staggering numbers, and it's a transition. Oftentimes, as women, we didn't want the divorce. Or even if we did, it's a disconnect from the identity that we knew ourselves, and we find ourselves lonely. When you get lonely, it sets up your sympathetic nervous system, and you run on high alert. And this increase of cortisol in your body affects your blood vessels, your circulatory system. It lowers your immunities, and so many physical aspects that happened. So much so that it's been linked to a 29% increase in heart disease, 32% risk of increase in stroke and a 50% increase of developing dementia in our older years. This is a health crisis. Not to say the mental illness that comes, the depression and anxiety, and sometimes your worth suffers. And so you have to develop a new identity. Connect with yourself first. We have aging parents. And if you're the daughter, oftentimes the responsibility falls on us. And you lose your parents. You begin to, I know that in my 60s, I started losing friends. Lost both my parents. Colleagues. It was amazing. It seemed like every time I turned around, I'd lost someone else in my life. And these losses, and you begin to feel this disconnect because these people are part of your community and part of your family. Maybe you lost your spouse. And that is a big identity shift. And the loneliness creeps in. And the deafening silence. I think of the song that was in the late 60s, early 70s by Simon and Garfunkel called The Sound of Silence. And the first line is, "Hello darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again." And this loneliness seeps in, and it affects our nervous system, and it affects our health and our mentally and physically. So what are some solutions to this? Well, I talked about my personal experience of how I really got connected to God and my spiritual life. And I went to God to meet my emotional needs. And I learned how to connect with myself. In society today, especially since 2020, a lot of local hubs or community spots or places for seniors are no longer. And so you have to create that. You still have a circle of friends. So reach out to those connections you already have. Initiate. Don't wait for them to call. Well, nobody ever calls me. Call them. Don't just text or send an email or, snail mail. What is snail mail? Call them on the phone and talk to them. There's something about hearing somebody else's voice. Get outside of yourself. If you're affiliated with a church, start a prayer circle. And that in this prayer circle, you take names to pray for. You can pray for other people and feel connected. Volunteer. If you still, health-wise, you still healthy enough, go volunteer. Go do something for someone else. Just as your everyday life, do something kind for someone else and get outside of yourself. Maybe find people who share your common interest. Like, if you like to quilt, find a quilting club. On here, on YouTube, you can find all kinds of communities to connect with. If you like to, maybe want to get into watercoloring, go to Evie's Eden. She started watercoloring after Christmas this year, and it's phenomenal to watch her paint and connect with her. Or do some diamond art. Nana of 5, she does some diamond art, and she goes live on Sunday nights and does her diamond art and talks. Those are communities you can connect into. There's lots of others. I think of Rosani. She does paper mache. And they're just all kinds of different interests. Junk journaling. All kinds of things on here that you can find and search on YouTube and connect to a community to feel connected. That's how you combat loneliness. We all deal with loneliness. I think it comes as part of grief. And a lot of what I talked about involves grief. The grief process of your kids growing up and going off, or losing friends, or, even in retirement. Retirement's such an adjustment. We have these expectations about retirement, and then it turns into something else. So as women, we need to step outside of ourselves and get connected. Connect to yourself, connect to others, connect to your community. Seek a connection. It's so important because remember, being lonely and staying stuck in that chronic loneliness is as bad as smoking 15 cigarettes a day for your health. And the last thing I want to really focus on is for you to have some compassion and kindness for yourself, and to nurture yourself, and to do those things to help you move out of this loneliness. It's a state of pain, and you have to move into a state of power so that your health, mentally and physically, is not affected. And if you try all of these and none of them work, reach out for help. Seek therapy, because sometimes we need help. And it's hard to ask for help. It's hard to admit that you're lonely. And yet, remember, it's become an epidemic. Email me on here. I will email you back. And as I like to urge you to do, is to be you on purpose.